This coffee is like, I've left it on the side for probably over an hour and I'm still drinking it anyway because I need the caffeine boost very badly. Today I'm going to be talking about everything that I read in October. I just had to remind myself what month it was because I literally on a daily basis keep forgetting. I'm going to run through all the books and other sort of media that I read in October, and then I'm also going to talk about my TBR for the rest of the year because I've got a lot of books that I want to read before the end of the year. Whether I'll actually get around to reading all of them is another story. A girl can hope. Also, if you've noticed a slight, or actually not slight, major increase in quality this video to the last video, I am using my boyfriend's camera for this video. In the future, when I do kind of like sit down videos, I'm probably going to borrow his camera, and when I do more like vlog style videos, I'll probably use my phone, which is just a Google Pixel. So obviously for vlog style videos, my phone has a decent camera and it's a lot better quality than my little camcorder, which I love the camcorder because it's so easy to use. But I did notice the quality was like in the middle for videos, so yeah. So yeah, with that out of the way, I'm just gonna chat through all the books that I read kind of in October and what I thought of them. The first one I didn't actually technically read in October. I think I read earlier than October, but because I've not done one of these videos before, I'm going to kind of throw it in there anyway. And that was Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. This book obviously has had a lot of hype. Any Hunger Games like book that comes out obviously gets a lot of hype because it's a really popular series. I picked this up earlier in the year because a friend kind of reminded me. My friend Izzy, shout out, and she was like, you've got to pick it up, like it's so good. I had read The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I enjoyed that book, but I would say, and this maybe is a bit of a controversial take, but I kind of enjoyed the film of Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes more than the book. I found the book to be a little quite slow at points. There were like times in the book where I was like, okay, I'm really interested, like the plot's really interesting. The bits with Lucy Gray, I was like, okay, this kind of history of like the Covey was really interesting. But there were like other bits where when it was kind of just Snow's monologue, it was like very slow and a bit monotonous to read. Whereas I found with Sunrise on the Reaping, there was like less of that. For anyone who doesn't really know what Sunrise on the Reaping is about, it focuses in on Hamish Abernathy, who was Katniss and Peter's mentor in the first Hunger Games, and it's all about how he came to be in the Hunger Games himself, his experience, like the effect it has on his family, and then on him obviously in the future, like moving forward when he obviously becomes a mentor. And I found him a really interesting character. He was obviously a very sympathetic character, like kind of like on his side, like rooting for him. It gave me so much more like context about him as a character, and there were so many things where I was like looking back on them in like the original Hunger Games series and thinking, wow, like that makes kind of so much more sense for him as a character and the way he was. So I think if you are a fan of Hunger Games, you'll definitely enjoy this. Even if you're not, I think you would enjoy it, but I think you possibly would still need to read the other books. Probably wouldn't need to read Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, but I would say if you hadn't read like the original Hunger Games series, you might be a little bit like, what is going on? That was a good read for me. I really did enjoy this and I got through this very quickly as well. So the next book that I read was You Have a Friend in Tenay by Maggie Shipstead. This is actually a short story collection. I had kind of mixed opinions with this one. I did enjoy it as a collection. I would say there were some stories that I enjoyed more than others and thought were stronger than others. I would say in this collection there's definitely like strong themes on the discussions about like gender politics, kind of narrators who not necessarily who are, well, actually some of them are a bit unreliable, but also who maybe have slightly like questionable like ethics, and who have maybe been affected by things like trauma or emotionally or physically abusive relationships. Every story in this kind of delves into something different. So just as an example, like there's one story where kind of discussing almost like this idea of like pretentiousness in art and creativity, and then there's like another story where there's a bit of a sort of love triangle situation, so they really differ from story to story. But I would definitely read more of Maggie Shipstead's work, but I will say some of the stories for me worked better than others. Some of them for me I didn't find super interesting to read, and I would say that some of them did repeat themselves quite a lot in the themes, particularly I would say on the sort of like gender and sort of like feminism side. There were some that were kind of just like making the same point over and over and over again, but like not necessarily in a new way. There were some that did really stand out for me. I thought the Great Central Pacific Guano Company, that was interesting. Acknowledgements I also thought was interesting. Cowboy Tango, that one was quite interesting, but they were probably my favourites within the collection. Then just the other day I finished Poyums by Len Pennie, which is a poetry collection by Len Pennie, who is a Scottish author, or poet I should say. I came across this collection and Len Pennie in general from reading Miss Alexia, which is a literary magazine that I get and I'm subscribed to, and it is specifically for women who write. It says that right here. I get this in the post. They do have a digital subscription as well, but if you are someone who writes a lot, whether it's prose or poetry or flash fiction, there's like so much good advice, writing advice in here. And they also publish like prose, poetry, flash fiction. Alexia did an interview with Len Pennie, and she was talking about her like approach to writing and sort of the themes that she brings into writing, and how the Scots language is a really big thing for her to bring in and to discuss in her poetry. There are quite a lot of these poems that are written kind of in Scots, so you can really like hear the language and the accent come through, and that's really fun. She also spoken quite openly about how this is very sort of like heavily influenced by emotionally and I think physically abusive relationship that she was in, that she got out of. That's a really big theme throughout all of the poems in this. I thought this was a really interesting collection. I would definitely read another collection by Len Pennie, and I think she has one on pre-order, or it's already out, I can't remember. There were loads of poems in this where I was like, these are really great, and I'm interested to see what else she kind of comes out with. I'll have a sip of coffee before I get onto the TBR. More than a sip, but that was like a gigantic gulp of coffee. Onto the TBR. Book that I'm reading right now is Here Again Now by Okechukwu Nzelu. Sorry, that is such a bad pronunciation. Like, I will put a voiceover here of me actually saying the right pronunciation of this. Okay, editing Eve here to say the correct pronunciation is Okechukwu Nzelu. Point is, great writer, and I'm loving the book. But I can already tell that this is going to be a book that I enjoy. Like, there's just some books like that where you pick them up and you're like, okay, I'm like vibing with this already. I haven't read a proper like lit fic, so literary fiction novel in a while. This is literary fiction, but I've also seen online that this kind of focuses on LGBTQ plus characters as well. So that'd be really interesting to kind of see how that plays out throughout the book, because already from the sort of introduction to the book, I can see there's like this relationship between the two characters, but it's almost like kind of unspoken. And I'm sure there's kind of like deeper reasons for that. So I mean, I'll read the blurb out quickly because otherwise I'm not really summarizing what it's about. So Achike feels like his life is coming together at last. He's about to get his big break as an actor, and his flat in Peckham is as close to a home as he can imagine. He has even persuaded his father, Chibuke, to move in, and he's grateful to get a chance to repay the man who raised him. Between filming trips, Achike is catching up with Aken, his best friend and the one who makes him feel whole. Achike can put the terrible things that have happened behind him at last. Everything will be alright, maybe even better. But after one magical night, a devastating event rips all three men apart. And then it talks about the shared grief may bring them both the peace and happiness they've been searching for. Yeah, I'm really excited to see kind of where this book goes. At the moment, even from the start, like I said, I'm enjoying it. I think this is going to be actually quite a quick read for me. Yes, I will update in another video what my thoughts are. So the next book I have on my TBR for the rest of the year is Strange Houses by Uketsu, and this was actually kind of like gifted to me by my cousin Tom. He works for the publishing house that literally published this, Pushkin Press. Yeah, Pushkin Press, who published this book, is where my cousin works, and he gifted me a copy of the book and he said you'll love it. Some of my favourite books that I've read in the last few years have all been Japanese novels that have then been translated into English. So Uketsu, apparently, according to the Telegraph, is the biggest crime writer in Japan, and I believe that, yeah, he's also a YouTuber. Quite a well-known YouTuber. I've not actually watched any of his videos yet, but obviously in preparation for reading this, I feel like I need to do some research and like actually get the vibe of what's going on by watching his YouTube. This is kind of like a thriller. In the blurb it says, a sinister hidden room, a dead space between two walls, a sealed cellar, a child's face glimpsed out a window. Every house hides secrets, but some secrets are far darker than others. More than 1 million readers have discovered the terrible truth behind these strange houses. Now it's your turn. I'm actually really excited for this one because I haven't read like a mystery thriller in ages, and I actually love I love short stories that kind of explore like really dark, creepy themes, so I think I'm definitely gonna enjoy this one. So another novel that I would like to read before the end of the year is S by K. Patrick. I like, honestly, this has been on my TBR. I don't really know anything about what it is about. Scanning the blurb, there are themes of, it's kind of like an academic, elite English boarding school. Mrs. S is the headmaster's wife. There's kind of a relationship between her and the matron. It says, Mrs. S is a tale of queer love that smoulders with the heat of the summer. So basically another queer novel. If anyone has read it, I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts, but I'm kind of going into this one slightly blind. Like, I don't really know what to expect from it, but it sounded interesting. Then the last book I have on my TBR for the rest of the year is England is Mine by Nicolas Padamsee? And this book I picked up when I went to Edinburgh with my mom like ages ago, like so long ago, and it's just been on my TBR for ages. And I picked it up when I was in Edinburgh because I saw that it was a kind of like a multi-POV narration, and I really like books that have different points of views, so like each kind of chapter is like a different character and it kind of like oscillates between the two. Also, there are themes kind of to do with like religion, homophobia, as there are humiliations in store for each of the main protagonists, Hassan and David. These second-generation immigrants struggle for a sense of identity and belonging amid a wave of online radicalization and extremism. Their fates become inextricably, catastrophically entwined. Again, there's kind of like a relationship between two characters, and they're kind of brought together by, I suppose, their individual struggles. I think also, like, to be completely transparent, I have not read a lot of books where there are kind of characters who like struggle with their religion, and like the people around them kind of, especially if they're like making friends and those friends are not religious, and how they sort of navigate that. And I think that's a really interesting point of view. I'm actually this one and the Strange Houses one, I'm probably looking forward to these two the most out of all the ones that I've got, because I just feel like both of these are going to be like a hit for me. That's everything that I read throughout October and that I want to read for the rest of the year. I know to some people that might not seem like a lot, but I am quite a slow reader. Between like having a 9-to-5 job and I'm also doing driving lessons, my time is a little bit all over the place. Hopefully I can finish my TBR and I'll obviously make another video for everything that I read in November and kind of update with that. But yeah, I'd be really interested to know what you read in October, whether it was a novel or poetry collection or short story collection. Let me know what you've been reading down below. Yeah, I hope you have a good rest of the day and thank you for sticking around.